India just knocked my coffee out of my hand. But
I think I heard her shoulder crack as
yeah,
well.
so we're off to a good start here. Welcome back to CineMcCue. My name is Ian, and I am joined today by two wonderful actresses and co-hosts.
I'm India, like normal, and this is our incredible friend,
Taylor Abigail Rice.
Yes.
Wow.
Hi.
Insert
Welcome.
clap track. Woo.
Clap track, applause.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks. This is our first official guest on the show, so hopefully we'll be joined by many more, but we figured we had to start with the best and just go downhill from there.
Whoa. Taylor is an actress, a rock star, a worship leader, a dog mom, and so many things. But would you want
wife
to just...
to the one and only Jordan Rice. Shout out to you, man. You are my favorite.
The only Jordan Rice. Yeah. Would you want to just intro, like, who the heck are you? Why do you love film? What's your role in filmmaking?
And what qualifies you on, speaking on this incredibly prestigious podcast?
Yeah.
The only reason I'm on this podcast is because I paid Ian in India to let me. No, that is not true. No, I've known Ian for a long time. I don't know how many years, but back in college, what?
It was your freshman year that I met you.
8?
Yeah, probably 8.
I don't know, something like that. So we've been film buds for a long time, and he is actually a huge reason for me getting into film and acting and moving my career in the way that I have moved it over the past couple years. So I should pay Ian.
I
really
should.
To say that. And I really loved getting to know India over the past couple of years. Since they got married, I feel like we're kindred spirits in a lot of ways, and I love you. So I'm really happy to be here. Let's cry.
All right. Well, this is the most emotional podcast we've had yet.
Yes. No, leave it to me to bring the tears.
Love you too.
Oh, you do. Spoiler alert.
Oh my gosh. So I have been a professional actress and model in the Midwest for a little over 2 years now. And I grew up doing theater. I did some in college. So I just had that bug in me when I was younger. I don't know if you guys know this. I would make movies on my mom's
I don't think we did.
Camera. Oh yeah, no, I should send you some. They are amazing. Ones of me and little figurines. I was a horse girl. So all that kind of thing.
That's we need that.
What? Yes. So humble beginnings with film.
Our next film
me.
is about a girl that rides a horse.
Yes.
I'm writing it.
It's in the show notes.
It's on my special skills, and I can't do it.
Impressive.
So kind of got the bug back awakened, rekindled the flame. In COVID, actually, I'd gotten away from acting for about 5 years. I'd stopped it in college, and then I think it was the KSH trailer or teaser.
And for those of you that don't know what KSH is, that is Knowing Shale Hollow. That is another podcast that's hopefully coming your way soon. No promises.
Well, it's one of Ian's passion projects, and he made a sizzle reel in COVID, and Taylor was cast in that. So that's the reference.
Yeah, so KSH is Knowing Shale Hollow. So continue, Taylor.
Yes. And that was the first time I'd acted in a long time, and I just couldn't put the fire out. That was so fun. These are some of my favorite people to make movies with and act with. And so I called him shortly after. I was like, what do I do to keep doing this? I love it. Nothing makes me feel more alive. I was in a marketing job, I was in grad school at the time, which is fine. But I was like, this is where my life is. This is where my passion is. And he was like, join an acting class or join this Facebook group. So I did that, and then from there, somebody was like, join this acting class. And from there, signed with an agent, and up. So I do a lot of commercials. I do a lot of short films, feature films, and I have been so privileged to been doing this, I guess since June of 2022, just full time. So I was able to quit my 9-to-5 job and do this.
Yeah, buddy.
In the Midwest, which is amazing. And it's a huge part.
How scary was that?
Okay, honestly, there were a few moments, but my husband and I had just known for a while that eventually it would come to this, that I would quit my full-time job and just pursue this full-time, because we really had a conviction that this is part of your calling and this is where God wants to take you. So what was the impetus for me quitting was I got cast in a movie as a lead, and I would have to be gone for 3 weeks. And I talked to my job, and I was like, is there anything you can do, like unpaid leave, like something? Because I was out of PTO. It was long gone. I was in the negative.
Probably all used for acting
all
as well.
used for commercials and stuff like that. And they were like, there's nothing that, like, it's the movie or it's this job. And like on the spot, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do the movie. So this is my 2 weeks. And they were like, kind of like, okay, respect. Like, you knew what you wanted to do. And it was a really cordial situation. And man, maybe we'll get to this later in the podcast, but the Lord just confirmed that decision within a minute of me doing it. And so I hold on to that moment of just taking that leap of faith, being like, I'm in Ohio trying to do acting, and I just quit my full-time job, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that the Lord's under this because of this thing that happened. And he's shown up like every single time. And it just keeps growing. So, but again, I can't say enough, like, huge thanks to these two for giving me content and giving me roles and support, and letting me be on a podcast.
Well, one thing that
incredible.
we all have a group chat with Jordan, her husband, as well. So
why isn't he here?
Why isn't Jordan here?
I don't know.
He's at work. It's fine. But one
He's
of the
too
things
expensive.
that I think we've all like texted back and forth before is like, we rise together.
Yes.
Like, we say that all the time because I think when Ian has an idea for a film or a show, you're one of the first people we reach out to for acting. And when you have an idea, like, you got to write and direct your first short film not too long ago, you reached out to us. And so it's been kind of a cool, like, symbiotic relationship with, I think, both of us as couples to, like, be like, okay, if you're in a project, we'll help out. And, like, Ian helped with Jordan's music video, and Jordan's helped me with a music video for me. So, like, we've all kind of, like, shared talent back and forth, and it's a cool relationship to, like, have Christian creatives in a place like Ohio where we can, like, swap skills and, like, rise together kind of thing. So, what a treat.
Yeah. That's definitely been one of the most encouraging parts about being able to create in a place like the Midwest, has been finding some people that you care about, that you work well together with. Yeah. That also are so passionate about this that they're willing to jump on projects together and make it happen. I mean, we can get a little bit into this about some of, like, the embarrassing films that we've made that are just not good. But at that point, we were like, we want to do this and we have to start somewhere. Right. And if we let, like, fear of failure kind of sneak into that space, then we would not be where we are today, because we wouldn't have created anything. We wouldn't have grown. We wouldn't have, like, gotten better. And so, like, I look back at those works, and you can find them online, and Please find them online. And they're not great, but I'm so proud of them, because before we even kind of knew what we were doing, and which we still kind of don't sometimes, we're still figuring it out. Right. Like, those films are ones that have kind of molded us and kept us together, and we keep creating. And, like, I'm just super thankful for, like, you, Taylor, especially, to keep trusting me as, like, a filmmaker on ones that, you know, we've submitted and not even gotten a nomination for awards. And yet you still kept showing up every time I asked you to be an actress again. And now, you know, we have an award-winning film going to Los Angeles, which is what we're going to talk about on this episode. And so it's just incredible that we get to stick together. And then when India came into the fold, you befriended her, and then you married one of the best guys that I know. And so I get to be friends with him, who is a good actor, an incredible guy with sound and music and all of that. And so again, our skills coming together to create this and growing together has been literally one of my favorite experiences. Yeah. So, and I'm super thankful that I like, this wasn't a non-negotiable when I got married, but, like, marrying a fellow creative that gets it, that I can throw into films, that can do the thumbnails and graphic design and acting and photography and all of, like, my skills that lack. Like, the podcast exists because she knows how to, like, do a podcast. I do not.
Oh, thanks.
And it's just, like, all of these things that, like, my day-to-day now is encouraged by the creativity of my wife, and then we're able to bring in friends in the fold to create content such as Lifesource. So incredibly thankful.
So good.
Yes.
Yeah. So thanks for sticking with us.
Oh my gosh, thanks for not kicking me out. Laughing all the way.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about Lifesource. If you haven't seen it, it's a 7-minute short film.
And that
Go
includes
watch
credits,
it.
And that's a minute long.
It's kid-friendly to a degree. But, like, there's, like, no language. There's no reason. It's not, like, horrific. There's no reason you shouldn't go watch it right now.
Maybe not with a 4-year-old, because there's some yelling.
Some yelling.
But we're going to discuss that film today. And it's a really special day because if you're watching this is going to be released on the day that Lifesource is shown in Los Angeles at Filmapalooza, which is a huge worldwide film competition that we are selected to screen this short at. So such a cool day for all of us. We're all going to be in LA at the same time when this is released. So send us some love and encouragement. But we're here to chat about why we think that film won, what we think, what we're proud of from Lifesource, Taylor, your experience on set, your acting experience, and just kind of break down the whole thing.
Yeah, and why the story is good or bad or could be adjusted, biblical allusions maybe. Like why did this film win? Like why is it hitting a little harder than some of the past things that we've made?
I mean, we're not mad that it won. We're just like, why?
Just like, why? And I think it's important to talk about that. And that's kind of what this podcast is like, why should you cue this up? Like, why should you watch this? Why does it matter? Why are these stories good or bad? So, definitely excited to have you here to talk about it because even though the characters are very similar in like status in this, there wasn't really like a lead female. It's mostly just you and India. We ended up calling you the lead of this film. And India was the supporting. Just how was your experience on Lifesource being the lead actress of an award-winning international film?
Yes, it sounds so big when you say it that way. No, it is big. Man, it was really, really awesome. And I think one of my favorite things about being on set with the McCues is they're really good at hospitality, and we just laugh like all the time. And I think for me, before I do a scene or even an audition, I have to like get the giggles out because you're about to be like super vulnerable and you're about to do something that might not work, and you might get a direction and you're like, I wasn't prepared to do that or whatever. So you're just really putting yourself out there, and there's just no safer space than you guys to do that. And explore and try things. And I feel like I can always come to Ian and be like, what if we tried this? And he's like, yes, no, I don't know. And we can just talk it out.
Honest conversation, right?
Yeah. And it's so good. And I feel like in a lot of ways, Ian, you as a director, you've really set a high bar for like other people that I work with. And other people just fall really, really short, like compared to like just the atmosphere you create and the intention that you have with your actors is so good.
I paid her a lot to say these things. So.
We paid her in bacon.
Still paying me monthly payments.
Subscription for you to come onto our podcast and speak highly of us.
No, but seriously, some of my favorite people to work with. And Lifesource, I hope we can get into this a little bit. I wasn't in the room at all when they were writing the script, because this was part of the 48, and so they're writing it like the very first thing. I wasn't there yet.
Yeah, we had 48 hours to write it, shoot it, edit it, and completely produce a 4 to 7 minute short with a specific genre, character, all of this. So, we had to write it quickly. So, sorry, just some context for the listeners.
I wanted to bring that up because I think one of the reasons this hits so hard, and every time I watch it, I've seen this like a dozen or more times, I still get that like just that arrested feeling. And when I watch it, even though I've seen it so long, because I think it really hits on just fundamental experiences we have as humans and fundamental questions and ways that we act out and ways that we try to reach out to each other and connect. And I was like, how did they do this? Like in the middle of the night on Friday or early in the morning on Saturday when they're writing this. And I don't even know if you guys were conscious of like, okay, we're putting in these like really fundamental human things in here, or if it just, you're such great storytellers that it just came out in this beautiful way really naturally. But because it had those elements, it was really easy and fluid to step into the character, just because it wasn't this it was just a real character. Like Bree was experiencing things that we all have experienced. She was very like extreme with things, whereas I personally haven't ever dealt with things like substance abuse or wanting to end my life. I have dealt with things like defeat, frustration, hopelessness, feeling unloved, feeling like I don't belong. Like there was just that level stuff throughout everything that made the character really easy to grab onto. So I think that was one of my favorite parts of it. And then obviously working with India, who, like their characters just have this, just how they approach life is so opposite and so interesting that it was really good to find those ways. Okay, this is an opportunity where they can really clash, or this contrast can come out really easily. And I think at the end, there's like this ambiguous ending that generates conversation, hopefully, and makes you be like, what? Like, it makes you think through it again. And all of that is just due to the realness of the characters, because life isn't always like cut and dry, you know, like, oh yeah, I saw that coming or whatever. Like, we don't see life coming. We just don't. So I think, I don't know, I could go on and on, but those were some of the highlights of like what it was like working with this script in this short amount of time, and why I'm so proud of it. So
good.
Yeah,
it's
that's
one
incredible.
of my faves. I wanted to say something that when we were talking about the script, so you have 48 hours to do this whole thing. So on the way to the initial competition, before we know what line of dialogue, what prop, what
character and character description, genre,
we were trying to like brainstorm, okay, what are a couple good ideas, like using who we have, knowing we only have like 2 female actresses and maybe a guy or 2 if we needed to call some strings. Yeah. We're trying to just think, okay, what could we do? And then we
call that writing into your resources, right?
Yes.
Like make a story with the resources you have available. So we can get into that a little later, but continue.
So we're thinking of these plot lines, and I think I came up with like one that I really, really liked. Then we pull the genre sci-fi, and we're like, what?
You have 48 hours to make a sci-fi film. Oh no.
We come home and our writers, Zarek and Jay, were here, and we're like, throw India's idea out the window, start from scratch. And it worked so much better because we were trying to be prepared. And then we were like, let's use like all these voices to come together and like make this even better. And like that, I think, is what is so cool about the short time frame and all the talent that we had to work with. Because even though there was only 3 actors on screen, there's 14, 16 people the whole weekend helping us make this. And it's just a really cool experience to have, like, kind of like what you said, when there's more talent and more creatives in the room, like something is going to come out that's so much better than like this initial like one person idea kind of thing. And it was really cool because Ian directed it, and watching him lead that whole team and having an amazing crew of DPs and assistant directors and PAs, like you
Shout
got
out to the Cleveland crew.
Yes, Kevin
seriously.
Coyne and Chaston.
And Chaston Media, Chad Austin Kerr and Tim coming down.
But just watching you step into your role as director made it all the more better and more polished because you got to only be director and you didn't have to worry about...
Sort of,
of course. But like you're not
some
like,
things happen.
You're not like, who's on Crafty and can we get that lens and let's build a dolly. Like that you had people that you could delegate to. Yeah. And it flourished because of that.
This is one of the first times that I actually built like a full team like that to have on set of, you know, I didn't have to worry about ordering food because I had people doing that. So with Chad Austin Kerr being an assistant director, he had his story Bible and he's walking through with the director of photography, planning out the shots beforehand while Taylor and India got to go off to a room into a safe space and rehearse and learn their lines and get the giggles out, but then like come to a safe space where you can, you know, practice your lines while we're like, and everything just started to really click and you could trust people in their position. Delegating responsibility was one of the hardest things for me to let go in my early film days. And I think that's why my film struggled, was because I wanted to do everything. I wanted to direct, I wanted to hold the camera, I wanted to write, I wanted to be the actor as well. You know, like I wanted all of it. And then when I started bringing in people and, hey, I trust you guys as the talent and I trust an assistant director and I need a cinematographer. I think that's why these things start to do better, is because I mostly wrote it. I brought in co-writers and I'm super thankful because some of them had experiences to put language into this in a way that I never would have been able to, into the experiences that your characters go through. And India, you had ideas and you would come in and like throw ideas at the table, but we also kept that to just 4 people instead of opening it up to the entire group because we didn't want too many voices in the room. I wanted voices I trusted. But I got to then, like, once the camera started going, I just sat at my director's monitor at Video Village and was just like directing.
That's got to be a magical feeling.
And it was so good. Like I never had that much intentionality to like just watch the actors go. and be able to instruct. And then unfortunately our editor got sick and I ended up having to edit. But I was not planning on being that. So like mentally I was able to just be a director.
Yeah.
And I think that helped you guys flourish as well because like you could just act. Yeah. Right. And so, yeah, I really agree with you guys there on like the coming together of a team, and it was beautiful.
And that bravery for you to delegate, like it took this film so far. Like that was the first element of success, you know, is building the right people, like having the bravery to ask, can you come and do this? We don't know what the payout is going to be, but this time it really worked. It was really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And shout out to your husband, who I would literally film on my phone the scenes while I'm editing them and send them to him, and he would write the original music on the spot for this. Yeah. And he won for best original music, I believe, right?
Did he?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know.
I think that was
or maybe
Moth.
not. Okay, that was Moth. Sorry, Jordan. But for Moth,
it was still really good.
Yeah, our last film, our first award-winning film with this group, he won best original music. But his ability to just right, like we had 48 hours, and I gave him maybe 20 minutes to score the entire thing.
Oh, and he destroyed it.
Incredible.
Yeah,
20 minutes.
Incredible. Like the music, it just brought it together as well. So thanks to Jordan for that.
I just remember we were sitting in like the garage for hair, makeup, wardrobe, and Jordan like called to ask clarity on the like. He was like, "India, what's the mood? Like, what kind of music?" And I was like, think like sci-fi Tron, but slower, more synthy, kind of like Worship meets Ozark. And he was like, what?
It's like 10 a.m. Like the script is like maybe done at this point. We don't even know what we're doing yet.
I'm like, sorry, bye, I gotta go.
But my husband is an actual genius, like certifiably a genius with music. So we're in good hands.
If you haven't checked out Vitruvian Soul yet,
right? Yeah.
Plug in, shout out to Vitruvian Soul. That's the band, him and his brother. Oh, it is so good.
Some sick beats.
Yeah.
I do have one more thing that stood out to me about Lifesource that I take a lot of pride in this, and we were talking about this the other day, how I think films succeed often when we have a like environment that is different than the norm, and you throw characters in and say, go. Like, so for example, A Quiet Place is one of my favorite like films to think about with this example of like, we don't know what happened, but for some reason, when you make noise, these monsters will come. Okay, now go. And you just throw characters into that environment in this like weird world, and you're making the audience think so many things. Okay, how are they going to survive? How would I survive? How did this all happen? How do we get out of it? And so you start having all these questions. And so that's something that we used in Moth, and that's something that we also used in Lifesource that I think is one of the key pieces to, maybe it'll be like a staple Q media film sort of thing, but I just think it's one of those cool things, especially when we're doing these short films that you don't have a lot of time, and we could overcomplicate really quickly if we're like, let's make this big backstory with this big ending and this, and when you get sci-fi, it's like, what do you do with that? So I think one of the successful pieces of this film is we take random characters, you don't know who Eva and Brie are, and you just open on this scene of like, we have these glowing orbs that show how much life you have left. If they fall off, you die. Great. And we open on their dad has passed away. Okay, now go. So we have no idea how we got there.
But he's holding Brie's life source, right? So this
it's like a mystery, like right away.
Right away. There's a dead father holding his alive adopted daughter's life source, but she's living with his. And so it's like, what happened?
Yeah. So, and somehow we're in this weird futuristic thing too. So
that, I think it's called in media res, is the like the literary term of like starting a story like right in the middle of the action. And that's like, it doesn't fail. Like every single time you're like, ooh. So
what is it?
Create a world, throw the characters into it, and invite them to explore, to learn. And I think that brings the audience in to like learn as well. Like, what are the unique characteristics of this world that I don't understand that these characters are living in? And so it invites the audience in right away to be a part of the story. And I've been loving that process of story writing recently. And it's been so fun.
Definitely one of my favorites. Taylor, do you have any other thoughts about your acting performance in Lifesource? Because I'm biased. I think it's one of the best performances I've ever seen from you, but also just in general.
And most of the time when I invite you to be a character, I need you to like substance abuse, yell, get a little grungy. Stuff. I'm like everything that you are like not. I'm like, hey, come be this character.
Yes, I've actually seen that a lot where I will get cast or get really good feedback from auditions with these kind of darker, dramatic things. I'll get like shortlisted a lot for a cast, and I'm just like a ridiculous person. Like I'm just happy, optimistic, like I like to laugh at myself, and it's like why am I not getting like as much attention or cast as much in that stuff? I don't know. I'm not mad because it's fun to act different and be different, explore different things.
It's the bangs.
It's the bangs.
It's the bangs.
I don't know. They just like make me look moody, I guess.
Instantly cooler with bangs.
Yeah.
Hey, in KSH, you're kind of like a nerdy girl though, with the big glasses. So
I'm ready.
I'm excited for a different character for you.
The world is not ready for like quirky me because it's gonna be iconic. Anyway, if I can say so myself. But this Lifesource performance, gosh, the most notable moment, I guess, there's like two moments I want to talk about. So for a lot of the time, Brie she's really like quite reserved and like kind of flat. Like when we first are introduced to her, like you see like a flicker of maybe like some anger or like shame or something like right at the beginning when she's on the ground and everything. But then in this aftermath of their dad's death, she's like just pretty affectless, like not a lot of expression.
You're the first to walk away from the funeral. You're the first to just kind of be,
There's just these weird, quiet, but very like pointed ways that she copes with this. Meanwhile, we see Eva that's, pacing, going through like documents and like wondering where her sister is. Like she's much more like engaged with what's going on.
Emotional at the funeral.
Yeah.
Comes back home.
Yes. And so, but at the end, there's this like huge switch for Brie where like a lot of the truth of what she's feeling, who she is, comes out. And one, to kind of mix up Brie because she's been like reserved. And again, this is like 7 minutes, so things have to be like quick. In the interaction with Eva and Brie on the couch when Brie comes home and they talk, it was planned out to be very just kind of the same tone of the whole show of like intense and dramatic. And we did it a couple times that way.
That's how originally I wrote it, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, we have to stay in this mood.
Yes. And we did it a couple times and I was like, something is like flat here. And so I came to Ian, I was like, what if we tried this a little bit more something that could make it more interesting to watch, where Brie is not so moody, but she's more like playful and nonchalant with her sister, like, oh, dad is gone, you're just like stuck with me now.
Oh,
and
sissy.
Oh, like, don't you love me so much?
Stuck with me now.
Yeah. And I think there's just bringing that like levity and lightheartedness to it did so much for their for the movie as a whole, because it gave it just some highs and lows, like just some different things to look at, some textures. And then for our relationship, it gave a little more history and connectedness, because otherwise it might have looked like we were just like strangers and didn't have a real relationship. So I loved that Ian kind of let me run with that and do it a couple times. And I think everyone agreed, like, there was just some new life and new spark that came from that. And I think that is like something, intuition as an actor, it's like, am I having fun? Am I getting energized by what I am acting, by what I am doing? If I'm not, what can I do to enhance that for my own experience to have fun, but also that will help the film. As long as
it'll elevate the actors around you as well.
Yes.
100%.
And so I was proud of myself for kind of listening to that intuition and then bring it to Ian and him being like, let's try it. And it ended up working out. Was a really good acting moment that I loved for me. And then,
if I can interject really fast, I remember that moment when you asked to switch and add this little humor.
Yeah.
And what's the proper term? I do it all the time. I like use humor to like deflect the emotion a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was kind of that for you, because I feel like Bree's character was like, she knows that her like drug problem is what tugged on her dad's empathetic heart. He switches life sources with her so that she can stay alive.
She's fully aware.
But she's like, I can't face that reality, so I'm gonna just diffuse this with humor, because I'm just gonna like push it away and try to like not like
move on.
Yeah, like I can't deal with that. And that's why like she went alone for a minute. She went back out to the woods. She's like back on her like drugs kind of thing. Drugs, I don't know the terms or whatever. But I just think that's a really cool, that was very intentional and intelligent of you and your acting experience to bring that level of like awareness at midnight on a 48-hour film competition to say, what if we add humor because a normal human would?
Sure, yeah.
You know, and I just think that's a really seasoned actress to like notice that and be able to pitch it to the director in the middle of filming, and it worked so much better because of it.
Yeah. And because it also allowed us to have a breath before the end of the film that is very intense.
Yes.
And so I completely agree that like we hear that switch when you ask, like when you as Eva and asks Bree, like what happened that night. You guys are having this fun laughing conversation,
just
like
for a moment, yeah.
Cracking a couple jokes, and then
Taylor kisses me,
moment,
it's fine.
like but you just want a moment of honesty from her. And there's this flashback scene which I love.
It's awesome.
And it's so fast, but I think you can almost see the mental switch in Bree of like, oh, now things are no longer funny. I need another break. And she just says, I don't know what happened, even though she does. And she hides back into her emotions. And because humor wasn't enough at that point, walks away. And then the like final scene happens after that. And, and I think that breath is important.
Yeah, it primed. Yeah, because it was like intense. And it's like, oh, that levity, just like the comedic relief, a touch of it. And my other like favorite moment from like my acting perspective with this was, man, how long did it take us to film that last scene? It was like a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
It was late.
2 hours.
At least. I mean, that was the longest.
And maybe we were rehearsing in that 2 hours. I don't know. But I remember finding, and I experiment with different ways that I like act, and this way I just was like, I am literally just gonna let myself feel the devastation of this. And I found that, and I was like, I have to hold this for like 2 hours.
Yes.
And it was exhausting. Like I literally just had to like not talk to anybody and just stand there and just like, I was like, had my eyes
physically
like because I just
we
like
sent production assistants and non-essential people for that scene out.
Yeah,
like, we sent some home. We were like, we need this space to be protected.
Yeah,
because it is exhausting. For
yeah,
yeah. You very physically like were like 1 second and like held it there, which was
and it was
so impressive.
Really weird and really tiring. But I don't think that I had like dug that deep before and like held that kind of just like these guilt feelings, these shame feelings, this exhaustion, which was actually just real because we've been like just doing so much over 48 hours. But it really was so easy to like bring up the tears and then switch into the anger, and it wasn't like choppy. Like when I watch it back, you can just see how my face is like melting into what it needs to be and what I'm feeling. And I was just really proud of the work that I put into that and how it turned out. Because I think like I'm super, super proud of this performance of mine. And I'm really excited to get to go to LA and like be shown to everybody. And I mean, that wasn't just me. That was like Ian saying, people like go home. And that was India like giving me something to react off of.
I'm pretty sure I still cracked a bunch of jokes, and you were like, 1 second, India, and I was like,
I was fired, India. I was like, calm down.
So I carry that with me into other like dramatic auditions and other things, because I'm like, I know that I can do it. I know that I can get there. I know that I can really just be messed up for a while and then come out of it and be my happy self again. So yeah.
I have a question for you on that.
Go ahead.
You mind?
Go ahead.
how do you come out of it?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just wondering, like, is it an easy switch for you when you're done? Because, like, Taylor shed a literal tear for this
not
scene.
Staged. There was no peppermint oil. There were no fake tears. There was no eyedroppers.
Like, this woman produced an actual tear, and I'm like, oh.
Again, the exhaustion just helped. It was like right there.
But
you were actually crying.
Yeah, I was.
But when you have something that intense, whether it's that night or a different scene, when you've been on set for a long day and there's a serious moment or your character has a really intense...
Oh, sorry, everyone. All right, 1 second, babe. You said that. And that's clicking. And Mark.
When you've been on set for a while and let's say your character has a really intense scene, or in this case, like you shed a literal tear, how quickly do you come back to yourself? Or is it kind of like a method experience where for the next few days you're kind of in that like headspace? Like, how does that go for you?
Yeah, that's actually a director actually asked me that exact same question when we were going through casting, because he was wanting me for this role of a young girl being sex trafficked. And we were going to film in North Dakota in the middle of winter. And he was like...
It's a lovely time there.
Oh, yeah. He was like, I need whoever I cast, like, they need to be a good actress, but I need to know that they're not going to, like, become depressed or, like, get lost in the darkness of this film that we're making. So he was like, what strategies do you have to, like, come out of that? And I think as I've reflected a lot on that question, I don't remember what I told him because I was so like, oh my gosh, like he wants me for this. But I think about that a lot because I think throughout my career, there's going to be really challenging roles. And depending on how I want to get in that space, I don't want to stay there, you know, depending on what's required. But I think it requires just knowing yourself, like really knowing who you are. And like on the deep level, like for me, I know that like I'm full of joy, like I'm hopeful, I'm part of like a really supportive community. Like there's all of these things that are just core rock solid to who I am. And then there's also just the little fun things like tea is very me, like doing yoga on the ground with my dog, like that's very me, walking my dog, going for a run, reading a book, writing a piece of poetry. Like there's those little tangible things that I can do to come back into myself, you know? And so I just have those in my mind. If I'm struggling to come out of something, I just do those things. Cause I'm like, this is kind of a weird way to put it. I don't really see that, but like, okay, like I'm becoming like the character of Taylor now. And it's like natural cause it's me, you know, but it's just those triggers. And it's really not difficult for me. That being said, like I have been on longer sets where it wasn't like as intense. This was like the most intense thing I think I've ever done. And it was so short that it wasn't like hard to get out of. But I can think about that. Like if I had this movie didn't end up working out for me, I turned it down. But if I had done that, that probably would have been more challenging because it's day after day after day. And so I think knowing yourself as a performer, as an actor, as a human really helps you get back to real life and like not get stuck like where you are. And this particular one, everybody was just so stoked that it went so perfectly that we all just erupted and like, yeah, we did it! Like everybody was jumping and yelling. So that was like just immediate for me, you know, because we all knew, we felt that magic and it was there. And that's like what I live for is when everyone's like, we did that. So that was easy.
Yeah. We're on a time crunch. So once we knew we hit it, it was like, okay, we're done. You have permission to like, let's celebrate.
Yes.
That was incredible.
As soon as you called cut, we're like,
I let it sit for just like, oh, I wish.
Dude, because we were literally like,
oh my gosh, everyone. And then we had to get like paper towels for you to like wipe up all your tears because you were flooding the living room.
So good.
Real quick side note before I go into that. Actually, the space behind us is the set of Lifesource.
Yes.
So we have a new location today. I know we're like 40 minutes into this or something, but new location for the podcast today. But we are on set of Lifesource. Which
still
is
our
cool.
house.
Well, you don't have to tell them that.
Okay.
We can sound all professional and mysterious.
Still our house.
Okay, I was gonna say that before, and I knew you were gonna specify that it was our house, but
our house is just so cool.
It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
It's a movie set.
Yeah. So back to that point, Taylor, and what India brought up is like it was such a short amount of time to get into this really deep character, and so I want you guys, when you're watching Lifesource, if you haven't yet, or go back and watch it again if you have, is to understand how incredible it was for these two ladies next to me to be able to get that deep into a character in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
you had hours with the script and the character description and the world that these people were put into to be able to evoke that kind of emotion. And that speaks to years and years and years of experience and dedication and practice and getting on set and trying different characters, that you get this one and you're able to go so deeply so quickly for both of you and understand the dynamics and the you know, tension between the both of you and how you're different and how you still love each other as, like, you know, an adopted sister into a family, and you're still family in this post-apocalyptic broken world, but you're just lost. Like, to get into that space shows the amount of talent that you guys have, because not just anyone can jump into that and be able to have the performance that you guys did. And that helps so much with this film. And why it is doing so well is because of both of your ability to be able to jump in, understand a character so quickly, and go there in a very authentic manner. Because you put the time and effort into understanding, like, what is my motive? Like, why do I feel this way? Why do I shut down here? Why do I try to mask this with humor? And I just think that was a really beautiful thing that you guys brought to the table, and why I keep bringing you back, and why I think Lifesource is doing so well. So
Ian famously only writes parts for India and I where we, like, yell at each other or are, like, really fraught. So
we're always very
fraught.
You guys are always going through something together.
Right, yeah. So
choked by a shadow monster.
A rom-com coming up soon or
Yes,
something.
please.
Yeah. I mean, with June, the one that you directed,
Yeah,
your
that was
debut,
definitely
that helped. You guys got to be some fun.
But in that one, I got to break up with Ian, so
Yeah,
it's always something.
It was always something.
Right.
So one of the things that we chat about here at CineMcCue is biblical allusions with film. And we talk a lot about how there's hints of the gospel or elements of sacrifice and Jesus in almost every single film, short film or long form. Did you see anything in Lifesource that stood out, or is anything, like, maybe not a direct biblical allusion to you, but just an overarching, like, there's a little bit of gospel in this 7-minute film?
Yeah, because you do say this story kind of tugs on you, right? So, like,
Oh, yeah.
why?
Right.
Like, what in this story does that?
Right. I have a whole notepad.
Please go.
But I'll pick, like, my favorite one, because I think there is so much.
We have time. Talk.
Like,
it's gonna be our longest episode
gosh,
ever.
there's so much. I think in any great film you can find the gospel, like elements of Christ, elements of redemption, and there's so much of it just packed into this, like, little tiny thing, but it makes such a huge impact. One of the maybe more obvious ones that I want to add, like, a little bit obvious to people that, like, know the gospel and, like, are maybe in church more, that I want to add, like, a little different perspective on is there's a father character, and obviously, like, you can draw allusions to, like, the father as, like, God the Father, you know, and he's, gosh, like, he has maybe seconds of screen time, but what he has in there is, it's so potent and shapes, because he's the bedrock of these two girls' life, is their dad, and we don't, like, the audience doesn't have any relationship to him independent of, like, how messed up they are that he's gone, so they know that this was a special guy, you know. So I, like, a couple of things about this father character that really just show God the Father. He adopts, right? So, like, how did Brie, like, get adopted? Like, I don't know. I don't believe that, like, this dad was just in the market, like, wanting to adopt a child. Like, I kind of envision it being a more, like, fraught situation where Brie had to come into their family for some kind of tragic reason. But he rose to that challenge and was like, you're no different than my, like, biological daughter. Obviously he sacrifices without a second thought.
Because he only had seconds.
Yeah.
Like, once your life source goes out, you have seconds before that person is gone forever.
Right.
So he had to make a decision in a matter of literal seconds.
He's strong, he's capable, he loves and cares. So the thing, like, there's just all of those elements of, like, what God has done for us on the cross and what he continues to do for us, like, every single day and throughout our life. But I wanted to bring out this one perspective of, like, why, because, like, you know, any parent or, like, good caretaker would, like, sacrifice their life, like, in a second for their child. And like many people do, like maybe not like literally dying, but like it's hard like raising kids, and it's hard building somebody up. And so there's sacrifices that happen all the time. But I think that there's this with God and with like when we're parents and even our friends, like, yes, it's just like the right thing to do, you know, and there's a love that compels us to lay down our lives for people that we love. But I think there's also this other layer of this father knew that it was important for Bree to stay alive because of who she was and what she was going to offer to the world. Like, so that's like another layer than just beyond like, I can't let my kid die, you know, and I'm going to die. But there's this, he saw something in her that he didn't want the world to lose because of this choice that she just made. And so he was like, nope, like not on my watch. Yeah. It's like kind of like he's older. He's like, I've had my time, like go do your thing. And I think that is what Jesus and God the Father does for us all of the time, is on the cross, like even like while we were still in sin, like he gave himself for us because he knew how we would bring the kingdom to earth. And he knew who he made us to be and the gifts and how we were meant to impact the world. So he's like, yes, like I will die for you and I will never leave you or forsake you. Not just because I'm God and that's because of what I do, because I'm unconditional love, that's part of it, but because I see the value that I've put in you and it matters that it goes on into the world. And so I think that is so powerful. And it's done, again, Bree's dad did it without a thought. God does it without a thought with us. He's like, here's your new beginning after new beginning after new beginning. And it's just this opportunity, gosh, for Bree, man, you have your life saved. She didn't even want it to be saved because she didn't see the value that she had and the worth that she had and how she belonged. She just didn't see it. So she's like, screw it, like I'm out, you know, like simply put. But she has this opportunity to think, okay, why the heck did he save me? She says, I didn't ask him to do that. So back to the question, like for her, why did he do that? Why did he do that? Why did he do that? What about me made him do that, you know? And it's like, we have that choice to engage with that question ourselves. Why did God die for me? Why does he keep giving me second chances? Why does he like answer me when I pray? Why do I feel his presence when I pray? Like, why does he keep engaging with us, you know? And it's because it's what he sees in us. It's like he sees Christ in us. He sees the individual giftings and blessings that he's put on us to put into the world. And he's like, you have value and we're in this covenant. That is why. Like, there's nothing that you could do negatively, positively to change this, like your inherent worth and value. And so it's this question that really like can make or break a person, I think. It's just like, why am I here question, you know? But it's that, why am I valuable? Why do people love me? And what am I going to do with the answer to that? You know, because you can't, I don't think it's like, you know, Bree answers that question in a really interesting way. But in real life, something like this happens. Like, I'm not about to go walk away from that and live the same way. Like, man, I got a second chance. Like, I'm going to use that, you know? And I think these just profound acts of sacrifices and acts of love really should shake us to our core and have us ask those questions. So that's like one really good father analogy that I wanted to make sure that I brought up in that.
Do you have something to say to this? Because I have something to say.
Go for it.
So
no,
excited.
it's so good.
It's
so good.
That's what I loved, because like even in like your dad comes in and finds you in your deepest part of your sin, right?
Yeah.
In an overdose, in this like you're dead at this point, and he has a moment to save you. And that's unconditional love, as you were talking about. But then you go back and you still have your vices. You take another hit afterwards and you're like, I don't know how else to cope, but yet I'm thankful I'm alive. Like you didn't OD that time, just your life source turned a little pink. Like you weren't going all the way again. You're like, I do have a second chance. But then when you were met with a conditional love of Eva coming in, that's when you were like fighting with that purpose again. And I think so often we can lose that in our lives where it's like, God's giving me another chance. Like he sees Jesus in me, right? It's the righteousness of God on me. I again knew like everything you just said. And I think so quickly when we're met with a conditional love, we can forget the love of the Father and that he loves without condition. It's an unconditional love. Yeah. And although your father in Lifesource was a human that is no longer around after that, he still kind of lives in you, in the life source that you have, right? And so it's a reminder of like, okay, there is an unconditional love that is fueling me, that even though when I'm met with condition, this can still sustain. Yes. And your character struggles with that. Oh, yeah. And that's the ending of it, is like your character is met with that ultimatum. And as humans, like, I just hope people press into the forgiveness of Jesus and understand their worth and value there and aren't defined by their circumstances or choices or past things that your character as Eva eventually holds over her as like, you are not worth, like, you even have a line. Do you remember what it was?
Wait.
Do you remember your line of like,
I just say like,
I wish we'd bury.
Yeah. You drug-addled something. It's early.
It's early. But yeah, you say she's not worthy, my drug-addled adopted sister. Like, you are not actual family. I'm actual family. Who are you to still be here and my father to be gone? Right. You're no longer my sister, sort of thing. And I wish we buried you 2 days ago. It's like, oh my gosh.
She's saying, Eva's character is saying the inner monologue of Bree. Like, that's what she's saying to herself. Like, since this has been happening. And then she's like, now that she's faced with it, it's like, whoa, I can't bear myself, you know, and what's been done.
And so I just encourage people not to be defined by the people around them, their negative things that they speak onto you. Like, yes, take the life-giving love things of people, but like, you are defined by God's value and worth that he puts on you, right? Like, you are Imago Dei. We are made in the image of God. And so I just love that you brought that up, because that was some of my favorite dynamic with that character of like, it's so hard to accept sacrifice, right? It's the survivor complex, or what is it called? The like,
I think that's it.
Yeah, where you know, one person lives through a tragedy where
the survivor's guilt.
Survivor's guilt, yes, thank you. And I can't imagine how real that is. And your character had to deal with that from the opening scene. Yeah. And your character is like, okay, you're not really my family, but my father saw worth in you and adopted you in, and you're still my sister-ish, kind of. And so I just love the dynamic that two characters with this God character in the background brought between you guys in a 6 to 7 minute short. So do you have anything to say to that, India, on
it's so
the
all good
biblical allusions?
No, I think you hit on it as well. The world, if you want to like pull this out into like, how do we apply this to everyday life? The world is always trying to tell you the negative stuff, that inner dialogue from Bree, the words that Eva shares. Like, the world is always like, who are you to be valuable? You're just dust. This is an accident. The world would be better without you here. Like, I feel like that's everywhere because we're in a broken world, and it's easy to like get in that like self-deprecating bubble. But it takes work to like seek out the voice of God and the voices of others who are with the Lord and who are lifting you up and giving you life and encouraging you. And so in this moment, the dad's gone. So like Bree doesn't have anyone to say anything good, and Eva's just like tearing her down. So we've got the mental health battle and then the external voice ripping it apart. And it's like, God, where are you kind of thing. It's like, where is the voice of love and of encouragement and of purpose in this moment? And it's like, that's when Bree makes the decision. Like, all right, if I don't think I'm good and she doesn't think I'm good, then like, I'm going to take my own life kind of thing, which is obviously like the most heartbreaking, like terrible, painful decision that like we see all around us. Like, we see that happen in real life all the time. If only there was a voice to say like, you matter, keep breathing, there's purpose in you. And so then that's when we get to this ending where you don't see anything, but you hear these footsteps from Eva, and you hear the life the life source either switch or somehow turn on. Something happens. Either Eva gives hers to Bree or is quick enough to get Bree's back on, and you hear that final breath back. And I think that's the moment where we're like, life is worth it. Like, life is worth it, even when you don't think that you're good enough, or if all these voices are pouring into you that's negative. Like, make God your life source, y'all.
Like, the most obvious. Can we talk about the motif of, like, the breath and, like, air that has been through this? Okay, so, oh my gosh.
Yes,
so,
please. Okay, I'm actually really curious because, like, I wrote this, right? And I want to see what you guys, like, I love this part. Please, talk about it. I want to hear
it. So this, I'll pose this question first. This motif kind of begs the question. It's like, what are we feeding ourselves? Like, what are we living on? What are we breathing in? So,
what is our life source?
What is our life source? Oh, we have a kitty.
He needs to interrupt every episode. If Appa didn't come into an episode, then
it's not real.
His life source gave out. So,
cool. So
breath.
No, just at the beginning, there's like an absence of breath. Like, we have 2 dead / unconscious people. There's an absence of breath, right? There's nothing that can be done. And there's the canister of, which it was just oxygen. Like,
good eggs.
She had so much oxygen in her blood during this film.
It's great.
The hit she takes is just,
it's compressed air, guys.
Yeah, nothing. But we have that thing, which she'll take a hit of later, but she hides it. She hides this thing that she feeds herself at the very beginning. So there's like a shame associated with that. When right after the funeral, Bree goes to indulge in her addiction. It's this like breathing mechanism, whether it's like smoke, vapors, something. That's what she's choosing to feed herself and cope with and help her get through this, is this fake, very likely harmful substance.
Temporary.
Yeah, that gives her something that keeps her going back to it. So there's that. And then later we have, of course, the breath when Bree's either resuscitated or her switched to life source or whatever. And it's just like,
there's also an exhale of the father there. He goes, ooh, and then she goes, and so there's a trade of air
in the flash. Oh, yeah, in the flashback. So it's just, I just love that motif and how subtle it is, but how powerful it is. It's like, oh my gosh, our breath is like, it's often used in the Bible. It's kind of like a metaphor for the spirit. Like, we're sustained by the Spirit of God. We are made alive with just our breath. And there's even like the name of God, Yahweh, in the original language, Hebrew. It's really like, it's just sounds like breathing when you like say the word. And so there's this thing, it's like, man, even when we are breathing, we're just kind of confessing the name of the Lord, like in this specific language. It's beautiful. And so it's just this question of like, what breath are we going to engage with? What life source are we going to engage with? What are we going to
fill our spirit with?
Yeah. And like, are we going to take in, and not just like substances, but like media that doesn't like sit well with us, or company that doesn't lift us up, or whatever it may be, activities we choose to engage in that we know is not like life-giving in the long term, you know? And it's like, what is it going to take for us to realize that these things are liars and they never keep their promises to us, you know? Like this air smoke canister is never going to be able to heal what's going on inside of Bree. Yeah. And it's only, you know, the breath of love, if we like say it like that, of God's love, that can fill and truly bring us back to life. So it's like, I hope people are asking that question, like, what am I breathing in and out? You know, because what we breathe in is what we breathe out, and who do we want to be, you know? So yeah, I'll stop there with that.
No, that's good. That is, I'm so glad you picked up on that, because breath was something that I intentionally tried to use in the sound design to because I believe that, and that's a director's note that I missed a little bit on yours at the pond when you are partaking to like have it hit a little differently. So my fault, but you still nailed it. But I literally asked you after we finished filming, I was like, hey, send me some voice memos of you just like inhaling and exhaling.
Yeah.
Because this is literally the breath of the film is following the breath of like the spirit, like you were saying, of each person and their life source and what they were filling it with. And I just am so glad you picked up on that because that was intentional.
Yeah, it's good.
So good.
Speaking of breath, we have a cat on India's lap that is purring right into the microphone.
Oh my god.
The backup mic.
Dude.
But India, do you have anything to speak to on the breath thing, or you think you know that?
All amazing. All good.
Great.
No, it's so cool. I think just again, it's a 7-minute film, but there's so much we can pull out of such a short piece of work. How much more is there to tell? Like how many more stories to tell? How much more can you pull out of novels and fiction and full-length feature films? And this is just like, might be biased again. I love this crew, but it's just really encouraging to have Taylor, your voice as like a rising talent in Hollywood, and Ian, your voice as like a rising talent. And it's encouraging to me to be like on the side of people who love Jesus and love art and love stories. And it's cool to like extract all this stuff from, we don't talk about Jesus explicitly in Lifesource. We don't raise the Bible. We don't all, like there are ways that you can take anything and make this, robust content. So I don't know, it's just encouraging to be a part of this group and to know that like this is what's coming, Hollywood. Like get ready.
Yeah, I mean we don't have to. I mean even just India, you were saying recently a lot of the cinema you have been trying out, right? Like you've been trying some new shows and things, and all of it kind of has like Hollywood is a dark place at times and leans into stories that are not good for your soul.
It's pretty flat and like very sex heavy for like almost no reason.
Yeah.
It's like, there's an affair with an affair with an affair, and then we're having sex, then we'll switch.
It's almost like cheap cinema anymore. And so I'm thankful for this group that can come together and make stories that intrigue, invite into a world. Like so many people have asked for a sequel or like a furthering of Lifesource because they're interested in the world and the story that is created without using cheap tactics, right? That a lot of Hollywood does with sex and language and all this, but like it still speaks to very honest things like self-harm and drug addiction and vices and adoption and familial love, family love. Is that the right word? PTSD, guilt, shame, like all of that is evoked in this short amount of time. And so, again, that's why I needed incredible actresses to like lean into this.
Pull this off.
Because in my early days of writing, I didn't really give a world for the actors to like lean into. I just more so had like an overarching story that didn't have depth. But then when we
start somewhere. Listen.
But then, when we created this and handed it to you guys, like I genuinely, like when I just saw you and India, Taylor, just go off and just practice and lean in, and then you come back and you're like, okay, hey, what is my motivation here? Like, why am I moving here? Why do I joke here? Why do I, like, how does this life source of my father that I'm wearing affect me? Does it affect personality or just like, and you came with these really good questions and you cared and you leaned in and it just delivered beautiful characters. Your guys' conversation at the end, just the ebb and flow that you guys.
Do you remember?
You nail it.
Do you remember that the life sources were these little puck lights that were gaff taped to our sides?
Oh yeah, we had to, like,
and they left like a huge red mark.
You really velcroed it to your side at one point.
Bruh, that was something to take off.
Listen,
there was like a red mark for several times.
It was
several
a lot
of times.
Oh.
I did want to bring up one other thing that kind of ties into like as we are literally headed to Hollywood like in a couple of weeks, but also just like wherever the Lord chooses to rise us to, who we will be in those spaces and what we will bring as believers. Because I know for me, it's not like every single project I audition for, get shortlisted for, or whatever, like I ask the Lord, I'm like, what do you think about this? And it's not always about like, oh my gosh, there's language or like sex scenes or whatever. Like, it's not so much content for me. Like, it's like the purpose of the content, you know? Yeah. And it's also like, I believe that the Lord really, really cares about the people that we will meet on these sets and in these parties and networking events and stuff way more, honestly, I personally think, than like the content of the film. Like, he cares about that, but he cares about you loving the actors and loving on the directors and being the light of Christ where you are and offering a new perspective to like what the content is that's going on and how you engage with it. So this Lifesource, I think I think a huge central question of it is like what is your life source? What are you feeding yourself, as we talked about? But also like there's this adopted versus orphan mentality going on. And Bree has this orphan mentality, but I think that Eva does too as well, because she just has no foundation anymore. And she feels threatened that Bree like took her identity like away, you know, and she doesn't have this like sense of belonging to herself. And I think a lot of people that are actually have been orphaned in life, or you just feel like you don't belong or you don't have a strong sense of self, that is critical to establish before we go into like these high pressure environments, you know, because if like we don't define ourselves and with the love of God, like other people and other circumstances will, like even if they're not trying, like because we're just sponges, we just take things in. And so I think with this film, it's like Bree is struggling with like the identity of an orphan. She's like, I'm an orphan, like I don't, and what does that mean? I don't have resources, I'm unprotected, I like am unlovable, I'm not wanted. There's all these things versus an adopted mindset that she hasn't gotten into. Like, I have everything that I need. I am loved. I am chosen. I am protected. I will always have a family. There's like all of these foundational human things that thankfully God offers us at any moment of every single day. So we can plug into that I am adopted mindset. I am a child of God. That means, and it's great because it's like, I was thinking about this last night, because we're children of God, we have all of the protections that like parents offer their kids. So that means like there's a lot of responsibilities we don't have to think about. It's just like not ours to think about, you know, so we can just play and like do our homework or whatever, you know, and maybe not do homework.
I don't do homework. But work. But he play and work and have fun and rest and
we have the protections of the child, but we also have the respect of like adults, because it's like God's also our friend. He's like our father, but he's our friend. And so we can talk about things with him and choices and get wisdom from him and get counsel. And then again, he's our savior and our Lord. So there's definitely a ton of stuff that we just defer to him on, and it always works out. So I think this just shows the devastation that can come in an extreme way from living out of that orphan mentality, you know, the extreme way of ending your life and dealing with substance abuse. But there's so many like more mild ways that we can live in that orphan spirit and not even know. Stuff like the scarcity mindset, stuff like the victim mindset. And it's like, how do we switch that into abundance mindset, into I'm full so I can give out of an overflow to other people and be what changes the atmosphere in a room and what changes people. And that's only through like being set in the Lord. Like every other way is like a liar that I have found, you know?
Yeah.
If you find something else, let me know, but God's working pretty good. So I just think that like, man, I want to, where Hollywood is so fraught with competition, with this is your one opportunity to better nail it. There's just pressure. It's like, yo, God owns every acting job that there is. He has put certain casting directors and people into power that have the opportunities. He's going to make the ways. He's going to find you the rules that you need. It's like, I'm working hard, but I'm not stressing about that stuff because it's all his, and he's going to bring it to me as I'm ready. So I'm just like, Lord, make me ready. Help me live adopted. Help me live out of an abundance mindset so that we can all rise together and everybody that I meet is bettered. Yeah. Instead of, you're my competition, I'm so stressed. Like, no. Yeah. We don't need, there's a role for you, there's a role for me. If there's not one this year for me, there's one next year, you know? So I just wanted to bring that out.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite
It's so
concepts.
refreshing.
Yeah, I actually put in my notes about what you're kind of talking about at the end. If I can do 2 points here.
Yeah.
I feel like
I'm good. I'm just soaking it in. I'm like, Taylor's preaching and Ian's looking
Having
cute.
church.
It's good.
Awesome. So 2 things to that is, one, yes, this is just an encouragement to other filmmakers out there, is like, never sacrifice the people around you and the actors and the actual real life people for the story to make it happen. Like, you need to be available and ready as a director, as fellow cast members. You guys do that very well for each other. You like watch out for each other and like, how are you doing? Are you okay? Do you need a break? Do you need to take a breath? But what you're saying about like God providing people in certain places, and also just being on set as a ministry, regardless of what the film does. In college, I actually got asked to audition for a short film. This guy was coming in from New York, wanted to make a short from his hometown in Delaware, Ohio, where I'm from, and he wanted to cast one of the main antagonists from his hometown. So hundreds of people at this audition at OSU. I walk in, I like read the script, and I do the audition, but then I got the further script, and I was like, hey, like, I respect everything you're doing, but there's just some things here that don't sit well with, like, I wouldn't be willing to do as an actor. Actor. And I was very honest about that conviction.
Yeah.
And it was fine if other people wanted to do it, but me personally at that time. And so I was like, hey, all the respect to you guys, but just know that if you cast me, I'm not willing to do this, and that. And the next day, the director called me up. He's like, hey, I really want you, so we're rewriting the script. Is this okay?
Yeah.
And I was super thankful for that, because literally the original title of this short was Godless. Yeah. Like, Godless. And it's based off of a short story. But I was like, okay, God, like, you want me here. Why? Like, I still don't agree with some of this other stuff that's happening in this film, but like, I know you want me here. Yeah. And so I ended up befriending this like 15-year-old kid that was a local as well. He was just an extra from here, and after everyone would go home, he had to wait for like his mom to be done working to come pick him up, and I was a stranger, so I didn't want to drive him home. I'm 20 at the time, I think. And so I just sat and talked, and I hung out and waited while everyone else left until his mom showed up, and then we did it again and again. I always just wait, and I talk and I listen, and then eventually, like, he comes. There was a late night that his mom was like, oh, I trust this guy now, like, you can go hang out. And I was like, oh, there's this church camp going on. I know the guy that's speaking. You want to go? And he comes with me, and that night gives his life to the Lord. And now he's a pastor in Florida preaching to thousands. And I'm like, all right, God, so you use this conviction of me not compromising myself. Yeah. And then while on set, I knew my ministry was more there than the story I was giving to. Yet I still want to be an artist and give my all to that character. And I loved that character. It was my first time like really playing a bad guy, but I know God wanted to use the story and my presence on that set. Dude. And it was just like, that was my moment where it clicked. And I was like, I'm called to do this. Dude. And I love that story so much. So I want to agree with everything that you said, that like, your time on set matters, protect the people around you, and the story can also matter, as I feel like we've done in Lifesource. I mean,
God uses everything. Yeah. Your time on set, getting crafty, being a PA, like shedding a tear, like every single thing, like he uses all of it.
Yeah, it's just definitely a win-win when it's like you really believe in the story and your character, and you get to like be a presence on set, and it's like, but also it's like, oh, there's gonna be sometimes when the story is kind of like meh, but I get to love everybody here and like create lasting relationships like you had, and like I've had a couple of times, and it's just the best. It's absolutely the best. So yeah,
it is. Oh,
he's back. I have Oppa now.
Any other thoughts?
I was about to ask you. Any points you want to
No, I was just going to say, I think that this has been like the coolest conversation, and just a good example of like how local people can make something that has a big impact. Like, it feels still small to me because we made it in this home. We made it with people we know, but it won the Columbus 48-Hour Film Festival. It got selected for Filmapalooza. It's this, national or worldwide competition. Yeah. And if we win at Filmapalooza, we go to the Cannes Film Festival. If we get like
top 10, we'll go to the Cannes Film Festival in France in May.
Yeah. So it's just a cool, and I hope it's encouraging for anyone like listening to this or watching this, that like you have something to give. Obviously, there's so much that we talked about life and like identity in Christ and like all this, really beautiful tactical analogy, but also in like a very tangible way, your talent if you're like, oh my gosh, I could never imagine like entering a film competition. Ian has done this competition for what, 7-8 years?
Probably.
This is the first year he was even nominated.
Yeah.
So like, don't give up on your dream. Taylor is a professional full-time actress and model in Ohio. Like, I mean, some of the girls here are pretty cute, but like we got corn. There's not a lot of opportunities. Like, and Taylor's paving the way and like flying around the country to act in like real films and real commercials. And I just think it's really encouraging for people here. Like, don't give up on your dream.
Yeah.
Add God to it, and it just multiplies.
Yeah.
Sorry for the pounding in the mics that just happened.
Sorry.
On the table. India got very passionate and was hitting the table.
Yeah, seriously, whatever. Even if it's not to be an actress or to be like a filmmaker, but you're some sort of creative, like God put that in you for a reason. And I think artists and creatives have a tough time because there's like the money problem, the opportunity problem. There's like so much stuff, the self-expression problem. But it won't, unless you express it, it's not going to leave you alone. So like, please don't live your life being creatively suppressed. Like if that's part of who God made you to be, because you just literally never know. Like if he put that in you, that means that he's got some plans and some opportunities and some people for you to meet that if you just take the first step, the next one will show up and then the next one. You don't have to see the whole plan, but you see things in your mind, you know, you see like, this is what I think I'm made for. And it might be huge and scary, or it might feel attainable. If it feels attainable, dream bigger. But
I've
just
been
like
that for a decade.
Lord, he'll do it. Like, even if you're not like into this like Jesus stuff very much, the word says that the gifts of God are without repentance. You have a deposit of God in you and talents that he wants to see in the world. And
you have purpose, right?
You have purpose. And it's like way better when you throw that relationship with God into the mix. But like, do not discount yourself. Like, it's kind of like, oh, who are we to like think of ourselves as great? Who are we to think of ourselves as like nothing? Like, that's so lame. And like, that's so, it's like, we're everything and nothing at the same time. So it's like, might as well do something fun and meaningful and challenge yourself like while we're here. Because that's what we're made for. So if you're asking that question, the answer is yes. Go do the thing that you're scared to do. You will thank yourself for it. Amen.
So we have a new host,
Amen.
CineMcCue, and we're going to have to change the name because Taylor's taken over. That was awesome.
Yes.
That's
no, it's so real. The world needs you. The world needs you.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just am thankful for this platform of this podcast to be able to talk about this stuff, right? Like, we are random friends that came together due to circumstance, whether it was a dating app with India and I, or happened to transfer back to the same college and go to the same night and sit in front of you and you said, hey, I'm in theater and I watched you be an old,
that's so
grumpy
specific.
grandma.
I have no memory of you.
What show were you in? Were you the mean
I was
mom?
Caroline Bingley in Pride and Prejudice at Miami University.
And I had just met you and you're like, oh yeah, I'm doing this thing. So I like showed up and I was like, she's talented. I was like, so when I started writing stuff, I was like, hey, do you want to like try this out? I don't know what I'm doing. I just got a DSLR camera. And actually my first films, I was filming on my laptop with the front facing camera. You weren't in that phase. Maybe you were.
I'm sad
I was at Miami. But yeah, I think I showed you, or at least told you about how I used to film because I didn't really have a smartphone. All I had was the front facing webcam.
This is actually the first time I'm hearing this.
And so at Miami University, my freshman year was when I first got my first laptop, and that's where I started.
Use what
it was
you
the
got,
resource
fam.
I had, and I used friends that I met at Miami. And so when I transferred back to Miami and I met you, I was like, okay, this is a friend that like cares about growing in this, as I've cared about growing in this now for 4 years at that point. And then what a blessing that I got to marry India, who is a phenomenal actress, cares about it, wants to lean in, is now signed. Just got some new professional headshots. Like we're moving forward together. And that whole Rise Up Together thing has been just wonderful.
We need t-shirts.
Yeah.
Tattoos.
Just massive tattoos.
Start with something light. Like we need a t-shirt or a tattoo.
The other one would be a t-shirt. It's a chaotic life.
That is real. And to what you were saying, Taylor, of like, you have purpose and go do the thing. It's hard and you have setbacks, but don't give up. Like, we get one life on this side of eternity. So like, I don't want to be 60 and be like, man, I wish I tried one more short film.
Yeah.
Hey, I wish I wrote one more character. Hey, I wish I acted in one more thing. Like, I don't want that regret. And because I really feel like God has given me that desire in my heart to do that was God-given, right? That's kind of how I read that scripture, is like that very desire in my heart to do this is God-given. And so I'm going to go do it with God by my side, and it might not look, and it will not look like what I think it will and what I want it to maybe. But, you know, I'm dreaming big, and thankful for the team and the partner, the absolute unit of India as a wife. Like, she's
seriously, don't sleep on India,
the support, right? The support. And I think that's important, to surround yourself with people that do support you. Like, I wake up every morning and India is just like, hey, like, go do this. God's called you to this. And I think that has been one of the best parts to keep me going in this. Surrounding yourself with people that can lift you up, because it's not always going to be easy.
No.
100%.
Yeah.
This was such a good time. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Do we know what's next?
Oh, we actually haven't talked about what we're doing next, but maybe I'm just going to say we're going to, in the next episode, we are going to be talking about the hot, big film, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, Always, and Forever, or whatever that title is.
Amen.
Amen. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Incredibly, it's in the headlines right now.
Super critically acclaimed. We're going to watch it and do our normal 4-point system. So if you haven't seen it yet, watch Everything Everywhere All at Once and bring your notes for our next episode of CineMcCue.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Next Thursday, y'all.
Next Thursday. We are not doing the point system for Lifesource, though. This is a unique one because, you know, we would give acting a 100 out of 10 and cinematography 100 out of 10. Like, it was an unfair scoring system. So if you guys want to, in the comments below, use our ranking system. Let us know what you thought of Lifesource, the depth of it, how kid-friendly it is, how good the acting, cinematography, and story are. But let us know, and we will join you next Thursday for another episode of CineMcCue. Thank you so much to Taylor Abigail Rice for joining us today on this podcast. And any last things you want to say?
I will send you my invoice.
All right.
Beautiful. How can people connect with you? Instagram or how can people follow you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm at Taylor Abigail Rice. I have a Facebook also, but I never go on there, so don't connect with me there. My website is taylorabigail.com. That's where all of my photos are, my reels, my resume, work that I've done. I'm on IMDb. I'm on Actors Access.
Yes, she is.
I'm on Backstage, like all the...
And she's in all of the major Hollywood films coming your way soon in theaters.
Listen.
So.
Soon. Give me like 5 years.
You ever heard of Christine's Wager?
Hey, yeah. That's awesome.
Her first big feature.
Yes, I had a premiere recently.
Yeah.
Which is fun. So, the last thing I'll say, please connect with me. I like to help. I'm becoming really passionate about helping actors in the Midwest. So I'm dreaming up some things about how to do that more. So connect with me if you want resources about that and just to see what we're all up to, because we're not stopping.
Ah!
Going.
Yeah, maybe we'll have you back on again once you launch some stuff that you've been in, and more once you get into more things. And I just love having you on this podcast because you have some incredible things to say.
Thank you.
So and that is Taylor. The people making the credits in Lifesource, we accidentally spelled Tayler, so we got to fix that, thankfully. But
really?
So we did fix that. So TaylorAbigail.com or at Taylor Abigail Rice for Instagram. And so thank you so much again for joining us. It was this is a long episode, but so worth it. I hope you guys made it through. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and we'll catch you next week.
Bye.
Bye.